So I just wanted to share with you some of the things that I'll take away from the presentations this evening, and some brief observations about what it is that made parts of the presentations most effective. So we heard from Mr. Phillips and Mr. Burgess about the regional impacts of increased mining activity as a result of increased export capacity out of the Port of Newcastle. One of the things to consider in this process is that the Planning Assessment Commission is required to consider the reasonably foreseeable impacts, environmental, social and economic, that flow from the development of this proposal. PWCS may want us to stop our examination at the front gate or the chain link fence, but the merit assessment is required to look at the reasonably foreseeable impacts of proceeding with the development. But the onus is on us, or the onus is on the community, to establish that causal relationship, to explain why, very clearly, the expansion of the export facilities will influence things like train movements and coal development further up the supply chain. Mr. Evans and also Climate Action Newcastle and a number of other speakers spoke to the question of carbon emissions. It's interesting, as soon as you sit on this side of the table, you start to think about the relative significance of impacts that people are talking about. How does this stack up against other activities, whether it's carbon emissions or impacts on the estuary? What's the relative importance of this? How does this proposal stand out from others? We heard about impacts from Mr. Roderick and also from Sam, who's been doing research in the area, on impacts on the estuary, on bird populations, key habitats, and also water quality. We heard from Associate Professor Higginbotham, Mr. Lecker, Ms. Jacobi, about the air pollution impacts, the fact that those impacts are cumulative and additional to air pollution sources already in the area, and the community concerns and also the robust scientific evidence about the health risks there. One of the things that I think is particularly interesting about this area is the work that's being done by the community to undertake their own monitoring, to demonstrate the flaws in the company and government's monitoring processes. This is new, this is fresh information, this is important evidence to bring forward to the Commission. And it's important, I think, when undertaking community monitoring or other research, to think about its credibility. How do you reinforce that by presenting your methods, the safeguards that you use to make sure that the evidence is reliable, and where appropriate to get third-party expert verification of the work that you've done. We discussed, there was discussion from a number of the presenters, Mr. Bunt, Mr. Campbell from the Australia Institute, Mr. Alcorn, Mr. Collins, Mr. Campbell, about the employment and economic analysis that the companies provided. It is important to consider this process as a contest of ideas, claim and counterclaim, and it's as important to have regard to the company's claims about the benefits of the proposal as it is to talk about its impacts. Placing the employment, particularly the ongoing employment from the export terminal, in its context within Newcastle and the broader region is important. The comparison to Bunnings is not irrelevant. You know, the comparison to the employment in the retail sector, the tourism sector, and so on is useful. It's important though to illustrate those arguments with concrete evidence that relates to Newcastle and the broader Hunter region. There were questions about the need for the development and its viability, given the dynamics in the coal market internationally. It's useful and very important to back those claims up with data, with analysis. There's an increasing amount of that analysis out there, and presenting that to the Commission is important. But bringing it back to the cost-benefit analysis presented by the company, and also the feasibility of the export terminal, is important. So we don't, in all cases, bringing your broader arguments back to the specifics of the development in front of the Commission. The criticism of the import-output modelling is highly topical. The general description that Rod Campbell mentioned during his Skype presentation was used in the Warkworth case and attracted attention to the Land and Environment Court. This approach of misapplying input-output modelling to specific mining or mine infrastructure proposals is under increasing criticism, and drawing that out in the PAC hearings would be useful. We heard from Dr. Ewald about contaminated land and concerns related to workers' health, and again about the justification for this proposal. Does it stand up economically? How do its costs and benefits locally, regionally, and also globally stack up? And I think also there is very clear, I think, to all of us in this room, a moral dimension to this. The Planning Assessment Commission is required legally to consider the merits of the particular proposal, but the commissioners are flesh and blood, and a commentary on the broader social and environmental context of this proposal, including its impacts on the global climate, go not only to the scientific or forensic balancing of the merits of a particular development, but they also go to a much broader debate, one that the commissioners are not isolated from. Just very briefly, in terms of some of the things that I would observe from this side of the table in terms of preparing for a Planning Assessment Commission hearing, it's clear that with limited time to convey a number of points that really strike home, that preparation is essential. Written submissions that illustrate and substantiate your arguments will be essential to have an impact on the decision-making process. The commissioners will be weighing up the merits of your presentation, your claims and your evidence against those presented by the companies. So it's essential to provide that evidence in a clear way, to substantiate it, to provide verified data, and to make clear the relative significance of your concerns. It is useful, and I think we observed this evening, it is useful where relevant to present visual data, images of the areas that are at stake, maps to place your points in context and illustrate them clearly, graphs to demonstrate change over time. So it's important to think of the few minutes that you will have when you appear before the Planning Assessment Commission hearing to make your point and how to do that in the most compelling way. It's clear that each speaker can't address all of the issues, and so coordination amongst the community beforehand to ensure that the key issues are presented, that there are no gaps, that the overlap or duplication where it exists is done strategically, and that where you're presenting the information in the most compelling way possible, the most persuasive way possible. And I think also preparing, I think we probably asked more questions and made more comments tonight than the Planning Assessment Commission will in practice for the real hearing. And so for those of you who are concerned about being cross-examined, the observation of people who've been attending Planning Assessment Commission hearings over the last couple of years is that the questions don't come thick and fast. You'll have an opportunity to present your views, to provide written submissions, and also to take questions on notice where you need to. So it is a process that is that's open. It's an opportunity to have your voice heard, but it is useful to anticipate the questions that may be asked, also to anticipate the criticisms that may be made of your arguments, to anticipate those and build those into your speech, into your presentation beforehand. It's a good idea to test run it with others beforehand and make sure that you use your time before the Commission as effectively as you possibly can. Sue Higginson from the EDO presented some statistics about the track record of the Planning Assessment Commission over the last couple of years, but I think it's important to reflect on the opportunities to influence the PAC, and it's clear that the best opportunity to influence the PAC is to present compelling evidence to them, but in the context of a broad and powerful community campaign. We've seen evidence of this most recently with the Gardens of Stone and the Coal Pack open cut coal mine proposal on the western side of the Blue Mountains. Hundreds, thousands of people have engaged in that campaign over the past 3 years. They've presented hundreds and hundreds of submissions to government. The first Planning Assessment Commission recommended that the proposal be refused. The Department of Planning has now recommended that it be refused. There's one final step, the final pack hearing, but there's a strong expectation now in the community and amongst the people involved in that campaign that the Planning Assessment Commission will refuse approval for that mine. So do not underestimate the power of compelling, well-researched evidence before the Planning Assessment Commission in the context of a broad, powerful community campaign. The Planning Assessment Commission, the commissioners, are not operating in a vacuum. They're operating in a social and political context where a broad and powerful community campaign can influence their deliberations. I think the fact that we've had such a strong turnout tonight, such a breadth of evidence and a depth of expertise here means that the community is in a really good place to fight this in the Planning Assessment Commission and in the broader public domain. So thank you all for coming out tonight. And I'd particularly like to thank everybody that gave evidence tonight. Please, all of you, write a submission on this proposal. It affects us all. And please, if you do have the opportunity to appear before the Planning Assessment Commission, use that time well to convey some strong, powerful points to affect the deliberations of the Commission. Thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight as a sort of a folk commissioner, and I hope that the real Planning Assessment Commission provides an opportunity for all of you to have your concerns heard. Thank you.